Hi, folks. Jack O'Malley with you on this Friday. Let's see here. A couple things I want to talk about. Talk COVID in a minute. But there's something that is the House is working on. We've got a lot of very aggressive plans. One on transparency, which is an interesting situation, especially with the governor having two top aides and an assistant sign non-disclosure agreements before they left the state's employment. Those transparency issues are huge. But another one that I want to chat with before I get to the big discussion tonight is our healthcare plan. We've got a bipartisan healthcare plan that is turning Lansing on its ear right now. And the reason is, and I'm not going to go through the whole plan tonight. Again, I just want to kind of bring you up to it. I talked about it maybe a week ago. But there's been some testimony I want to touch base on. But this plan has got everybody wiggling a little bit. And it's been one of my observations as a citizen of this great country and this great state that our healthcare costs are getting a little ridiculous, especially when it comes to our prescriptions and our drugs. And I'm all for everybody making a profit. I'm all for everybody having enough money to continue to do research. I am. But there are some things that happen in our medical system there that people have been making a few bucks on. And again, I'm not opposed to profit, right? Profit. But so these bills, I know some of the stakeholders aren't happy, but I don't care. If we can get good legislation that helps the people with regards to healthcare, I'm for it. I don't want to whack the healthcare providers and the drug people. I don't want to whack them, but I also don't want to shortchange the people. I want to find that system that works and is fair to everybody. Case in point, PBMs, pharmacy, I'm going to get it wrong here. Pharmacy Benefit Manager, PBMs. What are they? I don't know. Well, Representative Julie Kelly introduced a bill, House Bill 4348. She gave testimony in front of the House Health Policy Committee this week. She said, and kind of explained PBMs. She says, and I'm quoting her here now, "So let's talk about how decades of operating in the dark has led to a number of creative ways to put profits before patients," Rep. Kelly said. "How do they make money? Well, we start out with spread pricing. This is the instance in which the health plan tells the PBM, I will pay you X for this prescription. Let's say it's $50. The pharmacy benefit manager passes on 30 to the pharmacy and keeps 20. That's spread pricing. Rebates offered by manufacturers might be shared with the health plans or kept by the pharmacy benefit manager. And transaction fees, audits are ways PBMs can add costs to the price of things. Then there's clawbacks. I walk into the pharmacy, I present my drug card, and my pharmacist says, your copay's $30. You say, okay, great. You pay your 30, get your drugs, you walk out. You have no way of knowing that medicine actually cost $20. I paid more than the cost of the drug. My pharmacist doesn't get any of that. It's clawed back to the pharmacy benefit manager. So this bill would require PBMs to be licensed in Michigan while regulating them, which would include prohibiting practices like spread pricing and clawbacks. As I understand it, there are 3 PBMs pretty much in the state of Michigan that handle 85% of all of our drug transactions. So this is an area where we need new reform and legislation. It's gonna squeeze a few people's butts. I get it. I understand it. But we need to fix this. And so I want you to know that our health and our healthcare policy committee is on it. Great reps like Julie Kelly are on it, and I think it's an 8-bill package. Maybe it's a few more than that working on it. Doesn't mean that there won't be some negotiating through this, but we have to stand strong. And I want you to know that your legislature is leading the fight on this. Now, that's in the House. And we're going to have to get it into the Senate, which then also areas where some of these stakeholders can work and nudge. So we need you to support us on this one, okay? And more as we move through. I just wanted to get it on the radar. Today is basically, and Wednesday was what? The first day that a case was found of COVID was found in Michigan. Yesterday was the anniversary of the worldwide pandemic being declared. And 1 year ago today, schools across the state were trying to figure out how they were going to handle things with the closure that would happen on Monday. Remember all of that? Schools were given 1 day to figure out how to close things down. So we've come a long way. Today is also, ironically, the 200th update that I have done since the COVID lockout and all of this began. So it's really been a crazy year. And I look back, I was thinking about this driving home yesterday, and I thought if I could ask the governor some questions, if I could interview her, not interrogate her, but interview her, one of the first questions I would ask her is, why did you stop listening to the legislature? Now, I know, again, I'm not talking to the choir, the keyboard pounders, just having a conversation here. I'd really like to know what, Jack, hear me out. I'm talking again to those people in the middle. I think the governor's doing a great job. Think about this. I can tell you, when this all came down a year ago, because it was St. Patrick's Day, the 17th, when we had our last session for the lockdown, right? The 3-week pause that became forever. We were like, yeah, remember, we appropriated $150 million. We didn't even know what was happening, but it was like, you know what? We've got to make sure the governor has capital to work with because she doesn't know what's going on. So we gave her $150 million a year ago. And of course, she declared the state of emergency, and we worked with her. What was happening was, and we were behind her. Hey, I even said in an interview, hey, I'm not going to second guess the governor right now because I don't want that job right now. This is tough. All these things are happening. Where are we at? So that was a year ago, right? And she would come out with these executive orders, many of them a little crazy, like no motors in boats and things like that. And we, as a house, a Republican-led house, were like, our policy people and our representatives like myself, we'd get calls or concerns from our constituents, and we'd say, hey, here's our problems we'd have. And we were working amongst ourselves. And then our policy people would reach out to her folks and say, hey, here's what we're hearing. Maybe you could adjust this or you could adjust that. And in many cases, they did. And those first couple of weeks were actually kind of weird, but they were working. And then I can't remember the exact date. I could go back and figure it out. But all of a sudden, I remember talking to our head policy guy, and he was like, she didn't take up one of our suggestions. What happened? And that's when she stopped listening. She realized, for whatever reason, I don't need to listen to these clowns. I have the 45 law. And if you remember, we extended her powers under the 28 days. We extended it once. And we were ready to extend it again for a couple weeks if she would listen to us. But she wouldn't. And here's the infuriating part. Again, I'm talking to those folks in the middle that are like, yeah, I don't know what's going on here. The people that love her, drinking the Kool-Aid, and the choir that can't stand it, I'm talking to those folks in the middle that are going, yeah, something ain't right here. So what happened was she saw the 1945 law, and I'm going to go briefly into the history of that again. The 1945 law was written as legislative intent, a regional act to help the governor in case of riots. That's why they referred to it as the Riot Act. The 1976 law came along because Governor Milliken was dealing with flooding, and he realized he had no statewide emergency management law. So the legislature enacted the 76 law, which put the 28-day power, thing in place, realizing statewide a governor might need to be able to move like that. But after 28 days, you needed to come back. 45 was a regional law, legislative intent. That's why they didn't pull the two. They saw them as complementary. So now our governor And her shyster lawyers were like, we can do what we want. 45 says so. And we lived through that summer as our Supreme Court dragged its feet, but finally ruled and said, you know what? The 45 law isn't constitutional because it's a regional short-term thing. Madam Governor, you have misinterpreted the 45 law. You don't have extended power. You can't take that away from the legislature. The 76 law is the one that you have to act under with your governor's emergency powers. So right there, the Supreme Court ruled, but there was a Department of Health and Human Services pandemic or outbreak rule, and that's what she's working under now. In my opinion, she is ignoring the rule of the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, as I understand it, maybe there's some legal beagle out there. There is no real way to fight her on this one because she has stayed just within this side of the law on that. All right? There are some things she could do that would cross that line, and as far as I know it, it hasn't happened yet. And so we move forward. There's the whole issue of the nursing homes, which is unbelievable. I know Charlie LaDuff, who is a newspaper reporter, and the Mackinac Center are suing. We'll see what happens there. Good luck. Our schools. I was chatting with some of my superintendents today. Now, granted, we're Northwest Michigan. Outstate Michigan, of course, not hit as hard as our good friends in Southeast Michigan and other parts of the lower part of the state. But that was a whole nother part of this. The governor went with these unilateral, wide sweeping rules when we're saying, look, if Southeast Michigan's hit, that's terrible, and we want to help them in every way, shape, and form we can, but don't restrict everybody up north where it's not as bad. But she did. Why? I've refrained from saying it, but arrogantly power hungry? Yeah, it's been a wild year. Our schools, by the way, I've heard from my superintendents, they're saying, you know, our kids educationally are doing much better than people want to give them credit for, and that actually things have worked very well, and they're going to recover fairly quickly from the odd educational situation. Where our kids are hurting and it's going to take years for them to recover is mentally. The mental health issues with our youngsters because of these lockdowns and lockouts, according to these superintendents, it's like, whew, it's going to be bad. So we still got our work ahead of us here with 1 year to go, or 1 year under our belt on this thing. Hopefully with good weather, we'll be able to move forward. I will say, from what I've seen, the governor's approval ratings are on the decline, and that's a good thing because I think she is a poll watcher, and I can do whatever I want if the people are behind me. So that's why I want to talk to you in the middle. Please come to see reason that we've got COVID patients and our economic patients and our mental health patients. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep chucking. We're going to keep trying to get this done. The other part of this whole equation that I've seen through the course of this last year is Attorney General Nessel, who is a very liberal, some might say activist type Attorney General. She should be going after the governor on some of these things, investigating some of these things, but she's not. So when the discussion is that Governor Whitmer is a terrible governor, she's this, she's that, we have to remember that the person who should be investigating these things is Dana Nessel. So she's complicit in a lot of this stuff too, in my opinion. And I know that there are people out there who just think I am a Republican hack. And I would talk to the people in my district who are on the opposite side of the aisle, that I would argue that I have not hidden from you. This is my 200th video. I'm here 3 nights a week, and at one point 7 nights a week, telling you exactly how I feel and what I see and how I see it. So we're not through this thing yet. Unfortunately, we're going to be fighting this thing. I think not just the COVID, but all these issues, and our governor and her her unreasonable want and grasp on power. Because I see it in all other areas too, legislation on the craziest things. So with the budget, and I know I'm kind of going on here, but there's just been so much over the last year, so bear with me. I'm going a little long today. The budget, the supplemental, we send this supplemental. She vetoes things. We try to override. The Democrats in the House won't go with us. Then her budget negotiator says, would you please negotiate in good faith bipartisanship on this budget? And Thomas Albert, our approach chair, said, no. When will the governor listen to us and go back to co-equal branches of government? Why should we be the ones who give when we've got this leader who doesn't give a fat rat's patoot about the legislature? I go back to co-equal branches of government. We are here. We represent you. Let us represent our people, Madam Governor. So they're going to be able to write books on Governor Whitmer. You know, there is an old saying, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And Governor Whitmer has tried, and in many ways successfully, set herself up with absolute power. So if that saying is true, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we see non-disclosure agreements from a very controversial Department of Health and Human Services director when he left with no real comment, and a UIA director who just was canned and then nothing, and a non-disclosure agreement signed. You know, when we talk about the severance pay, I'm going to even get away from it. You know, yeah, Gordon probably wasn't worth $155,000, but let's count that as a severance package. That happens. That happens in business. I'm not going to argue it. Well, it's government money. Off the high horse for just a second. I get it. But severance dollars happen. The real key, don't get hung up on the cash. Why was there a non-disclosure clause signed? That's the real question. Don't get blinded per se by the money. It's an issue because the guy wasn't worth a nickel, but he got 155. Non-disclosure. So on this year anniversary of the COVID, on this ironically 200th update of the COVID, I promise you, I will keep arguing. I will keep discussing. I will keep trying to reach across the aisle to get things to work because I represent everybody in my district, right? So I will keep being massively transparent with you because that's how I think it should be done. I wish the governor would listen. Her and her sunshine theory there of a sunshine plan of transparency. She forgot about that, eh? All right. I've gone long. Don't forget, Spring Forward on Sunday morning at 2 a.m. so you won't be late for church. Bye-bye.